Might be,
Working.
sir. And looks like it might be. Here we
Sure
go.
does.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA. We're going to be talking about branding, digital fraud, and direct mail today. So we're going to cover the waterfront, but we're going to start with Tom Fishburne. Media context. Whoop, my menu is gone, so I can't highlight things. I don't know how that happened. I never know how any of this happens. I know that some character or something will bring it back. So let's try hitting some F keys. I think it will. I always liked marking them up. Nope, didn't seem to get anything to go. Okay. Nope, not getting a menu at all. So we'll not have to mark them up, but you can see my cursor. Media context and brand suitability. And we'll try to chop that off. So we're starting with Tom Fishburne. Maybe we should take media context into account. See, that would be a great place for an underline. And we've got a dumpster and a dumpster fire and your ad here. Maybe we should take media context into account. Yes, well, possibly. Well, we have an excellent illustration from Tom about that. Where an ad appears can sometimes communicate more than the ad itself. Okay, this is really bothering me that I can't put underlines in everywhere. And I really don't know how to get it to. To give me the underlines and give me the menu. That's unbelievable to me. I did reboot my computer last week, and that always messes with things. But anyway, Keith Browning, I did underline that, LinkedIn's brand marketing global lead, told a story about an experiment Joshua Bell, one of the top violinists in the world, ran. One day, Joshua stepped into a metro stop in D.C. and played a 43-minute solo concert during the morning commute. Over 1,000 people passed within a couple of feet of him, but only 7 people stopped to listen, and only 20 paused long enough to drop a donation in his violin case. He made just over $32. 2 weeks earlier, he had played to a packed house, charging $100 a seat at Symphony Hall in Boston. And I think I also saw him or someone doing a similar experiment. You know, they thought, well, maybe the subway, people are in a hurry, that would just not be a great place. Maybe if we did it inside of I think one was a bank and another might have been a really luxury hotel, where they try to get a different geodemographic. And the results were basically the same. It was fascinating, right? That without the accoutrements, no one paid any attention. And when people paid, they did pay attention. I've also seen similar stories about sommelier events where, or at least casual ones, where the bottles were labeled with fancy labels, and those were rated the highest, or people were told this was a 99 rating by Wine Connoisseur magazine or whatever, and this is a 50 rating, and they'll always rate it consistent with that because they don't want to be thought uncouth. Okay, so advertisers early in the use of programmatic, this is from Keith again, early in the use of programmatic buying, advertisers' early use of programmatic buying was often based on the assumption that targeting trumped context. Being able to target people whenever you wanted allowed you to reach them more efficiently. Since ignoring content lowered costs, it must be an improvement. Okay, context. Okay, not content. And so you can tell I'm a bit flustered. And so I've never done a lot of digital advertising. I've worked primarily with mailers and helped them be more effective and more efficient. But in the context of mail, we regularly mailed to subscribers of relevant content magazines. And, you know, it always worked pretty well. It didn't work as well as people had bought similar items or people had bought from us recently, but it did work, and it always worked better than the geodemographic selects that we were tempted to try, and we did try them every now and then, test them against our other lists. So, you know, this seems self-evident to me. It's like, well, duh. But the one premise I really have a question about, and if you're a digital advertising expert, you can maybe explain this to me, but this sentence that I didn't highlight, being able to target people whenever you wanted, being able to target people wherever you wanted, can you really target people in digital? Do you really know who you're targeting? Because I don't think you do. You know, you might target people who visited a particular site, or you might put a banner ad on a particular site, but then again, that's context, right? But when you're using an ad buying network, often even that's relatively invisible and lost. Many strategies still apply the same logic, especially when it comes to response. If you can get enough people to click on an ad for low enough cost, then it doesn't matter where your ad appeared. And again, click is not the same as buy. You know, click in the direct mail world is like you went to the mailbox and you glanced at the envelopes. That's about the level of a click. And maybe you bring them back and you glanced again as you put them in the trash. That's about a click. A click is the engagement that all mail generates. We generate a recognition of or at least an assumption that we recognize what the mailer is about. And oftentimes we get a longer one if we have a little more deceptive envelope, but that doesn't always reap rewards in terms of the actual buy. It can actually be counterproductive, and I've mentioned that before. Okay, so it's tempting to use ever more advanced analytics to optimize marketing ever more efficiently around these outcomes. In other words, believing that you're actually getting it to the right person. You know, hard to say. However, that would be a huge mistake, and the Joshua Bell experiment helps explain why. In a post-cookie world, taking context into account is suddenly in vogue again. And yet, one size doesn't fit all. Not every brand will look at context the same, nor will every consumer. Marketers need a more nuanced approach from the blunt hammer of brand safety, in other words, just of trying to avoid a disaster, to the more careful evaluation of brand suitability, which is always what we were going after because we were going after a sale, not a click. And here's a few related cartoons. Smells so good. Smells so good. Our ad tech vendor said it doesn't matter where an ad appears as long as it's the right audience. And of course, I'm thinking it might be the right audience, and it might even be the right message if it's a bar. You know, if these urinals are you know in the context, you know, of a sports bar, you know, you probably will sell some pizza because people don't think maybe to buy pizza when they're coming for a beer and watching the game. Just saying, could work excellent, could be excellent context, right? And that's maybe what he's talking about in the terms of nuanced. Okay, are the digital ads we buy actually being seen? Absolutely. This is more my perspective. Almost half the time, at least 50% of the pixels for a whole second, hopefully by a human. Maybe on a site without porn, but there's no way to verify that. That explains the low CPM, that means price for those of you non-advertising people. Cost per thousand. Yes, it's a great deal. It's a great price. Does that mean it's a great value? Not necessarily. This is one of my favorites. Is our digital ad spend effective? Sure, after we pay agencies and tech vendors and exchanges and we lose some in thin air, but is the rest of it effective? According to all these impressions, see, trending up, and then the robots say, I wish we had some money to buy some of the stuff on these ads we keep clicking on. Right, we can't buy. And so then Dr. Augustine Fou, who I follow and admire, and we did an interview on the show not too long ago. He's been fooling around with AI spokespeople. So he's hired a new spokesperson for his perspective. And I think I have that queued up over here, so we'll try and get that to work. And here she goes.
Pernicious retargeting fraud. Retargeting is where advertisers show ads to users that have visited their site before. This might sound like a good idea in theory, but most people experience retargeting as, quote, those creepy ads that follow me around the internet, even though I already bought the thing. Further, advertisers may not realize it, but retargeting is also a favorite playground for bots. Retargeting fraud is where bots first visit an advertiser's website to collect cookies. This makes it appear they expressed interest. Then they go to fraudsters' cash-out sites to cause ads to load there. This helps fraudsters get a higher CPM and earn more money because the advertiser pays more for retargeting. Note that the higher click-through rates you see in retargeting campaigns are because bots clicked on the ads, not because retargeting works better. When was the last time you clicked on an ad, especially a retargeted one? Use Fou-Analytics to see Fou yourself.
Oh, we went too far.
Pernicious retargeting.
Okay, so anyway, we'll get to what it says. We'll go back here to the article, and here is the transcription of that, which is probably how the bot read it. You know, she sure is better at that than Abraham Lincoln was when I went to Disneyland in 1970 or something like that, 68. But he gave the Gettysburg Address, I think, and moved his mouth in. Anyway, so what he's saying is that the bots click on when you advertise on a site that's fraudulent accidentally, especially if you're not taking context into account too much, but you're looking for the lowest price and the most reach for the least money, the bots will come and click your ad and then go to your landing page and go to your shopping cart and then leave, which will then trigger an ad response. Although Brian Dillette in his interview with me said that if a bot doesn't stay long enough, they don't trigger, and this is retargeting with mail, they don't trigger a retarget. And if a bot stays more than a few minutes, then they figure there's not, well, actually their testing indicates there's not much extra impact of sending a retargeting. Interesting, I thought. So if it's too short or too long, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but if it's just right, then they'll send the retargeting. And so very big problem that you don't know who's seeing your ad and you don't know what those clicks mean. And maybe you're getting ripped off, even when you're thinking about the context. And that's why we always use publications. When we use publications, we use ones that we knew that they were legitimate. And there was a difference between the complimentary ones that you got because you were in engineering or something versus the paid publications, and those always performed better. Okay, how strong is your direct mail? And this is from Dirk Swisher, and I just discovered him the other day. We're connected, but he has a really, really extensive library of direct mail tips. And this one I found the other day because it was from May 11th this year. So how strong is your direct mail foundation? And again, that deserves an underline. Your mailing list, the basics still need to come first. This is really good. Let the creativity flow. However, the basics still need to come first. Before setting your designer loose, take a step back and make sure you've covered the fundamentals. And one of the things I recommend, having ran a direct marketing graphic design division, is that the designers work for the marketing department. That sounds trivial, I know, because they probably do. But when I got to the company, I found that the designers told the marketing people what to do, what they were going to do. And somebody's calling me a lot. Oh, that was just the phone system. Quite the day today, quite the action today, quite the distraction today. I apologize for that. So anyway, when you set the designer loose or before you do, make sure the fundamentals are covered. And I see this all the time. I was just working with a very beautiful catalog company, and they didn't realize, they thought I was just a design guy, but I mean, just a data guy, but I'd started in design. And I said to them, your type is too small. I'm sure you have, I have very rich people in your geodemographics. I've looked at their geodemographics. They sent me their data. And I'm also sure when the owner of the company who I was talking to went to the designer said, you're going to ruin our catalog. You're going to totally destroy it. And I said to him, you can do a black plate change. You can test it very inexpensively. Just make the type a little bigger, or a font that's a little less open, a little more readable. And you can leave the headlines alone. That's fine. And so it's almost a free test, especially if you're printing on a digital press, then it's literally a free test. My goodness. But rather than test, I listen to the designer, and I haven't heard back from them. I will call again, but I'm sure that'll be the story, because that's always the story. I was told that by my designers. You're going to schlock it up. Right. Well, the first test I ran generated 40% higher response without a word of copy change or type change or anything in the body of the copy. Just the image on the cover. Not even a word of copy or anything on the cover. Just the image that we put on the cover. And I've told that story before. So anyway, rightly, Dirk says the mailing list is where you start. And again, wish I had the underlines. Is your mailing list current? Are you mailing to the right people? Are the names up to date? Are the duplicates or even triplicates that need to be called? Now, be a little careful with that, because oftentimes, especially if you have a product that is bought repeatedly, I've tested back in the early days of merge purge. We tested the elimination of duplicates, and it never raised the response rate. It could lower the circulation. But what happens is, if you mail people too many catalogs, you know what they do with them? They dump them in the trash, yeah, or they mail them back to you, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing Merge Purge did for us was, the boss would tell me that somebody complained they got 7 catalogs or something. And usually it was in a zip code like that we had a office in, or they were decoys or something. It wasn't a legitimate customer. But so it lowers the complaints. I'll say that. But often it increases the pass along, I should say. It's interesting. And I've told those stories also before. But he's right. Start with your mailing list, and I would say you might want to send it out to somebody for profiling, find out what it indicates, but don't take that as gospel, because sometimes your profile just indicates where you've been advertising in what context. Segmentation, whether or not you're doing full personalization, your mailing could still use basic segmentation. This is very difficult. Oftentimes the match rate's low. It'll give you some idea, but usually that's a profile, and that'll give you about as much as you're going to get. You might speak differently to families with children than with retirees. You might, but if you have a good, strong offer, that probably doesn't matter too much. Probably isn't worth the trouble. Data accuracy, that sounds a lot like cleanliness of your mailing list, but you really have to be careful. Products do not necessarily indicate, customers purchasing infant formula do not necessarily have young children. They might be grandparents picking up necessities, right, as he says. So, but if customers subscribe to New Baby, again, subscriptions, especially if they pay to subscribe, that makes a big difference. Call to action, make it bold. I worked with Oakley, and they had their response message hidden in the body copy. I told them this will definitely not work. Multiple response mechanisms, URLs, personalized QR code, and make the QR code visible. Don't hide it in an image, because people miss it then. They know what it is, and they know what it's for. A tear-out card maybe, and a phone number. Bullets in white space, starbursts, underlines I added. Make it easy to read, make it clear. And I've raised response rate 20% just by cleaning it up a little bit, and include a postscript if it's a letter. That is, it might not make sense on a postcard. So thanks for that, Dirk. A really good checklist to make sure you're covering the basics no matter what your graphic designer cooks up. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know